happy about that. She's going to come back. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, can I start? All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Public Safety Committee. Before I gavel in the meeting for tonight, I wanted to take the opportunity to say two things. One was to thank everybody on the committee, everybody on staff, everybody who's here for indulging me asking to move this meeting back for half an hour. Thank you very much. I know that cuts into everybody's evenings, and I very much appreciate it. And secondly, I would like to welcome Sharon Harder to the committee. Ways and Means Loss is our gain. So welcome, and thank you very much for agreeing to be a part of this committee. So with that, gavel in the April 24th meeting of the Public Safety Committee. Could I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Plufka?
Yes, here.
Alderwoman Sims?
Here, yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Here.
Alderwoman Harder? All members are present.
Thank you very much. Second order of business is the agenda approval. I have one request for a change, and that is to combine 9A and B, which both concern our fire department, into 6A, which is the fire department's report. Can I get a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll just do this by acclamation, or I do it by roll call? By acclamation, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much for that change. Are there any other changes anybody wants to make to the agenda for this evening? Hearing none, the rest of the agenda, the balance of the agenda will stand as submitted. At this point, we offer citizen comments, an opportunity for anybody from the public, either watching online or here in the audience, to speak to this committee with regard to any issue concerning public safety. You'll be granted 3 minutes. Please identify yourself and your address.
There are no members online.
Oh, please. Yeah, there's not a microphone up there, though.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, there is?
Oh, is this it?
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
I think it's on.
it's on. Okay. My name is Lenise Cummings-Vaughn. I live at 8927 Litzinger, and I am presenting because the homes in the row with me, we all share an alley, and the exit and entrance to the alley is right across from McGrath, the entrance to McGrath. And on drop-off and pickup times, there are quite a number of cars parked on the north, let's see, I would call that the northeast side of the street. And there's no sight lines in order to turn, and cars don't stop. So it's become very dangerous. Many of us have been quite alarmed by the lack of sight lines both ways, turning either north or south, but for me it's much worse turning south. So we were wondering if there is any way that that side of the street could be made no parking, or something else could be done, because it's become quite dangerous. Some of my other neighbors have also cited that they have almost encountered pedestrians, that people walk there, the students on their way to school, and they don't seem to realize that there is an exit and entrance of a car at that alley, and come very close to people walking there. So it just seems like people are not aware. The very last thing is that one of my neighbors sent us a picture that one of the family members of one of the children was actually parked in our alley waiting for the drop-off time, which is kind of dangerous and a little bit of a nuisance. So those were the issues.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
for the
you.
comments. I appreciate it. Before you leave, this is not usually a give and take or a back and forth, but I would encourage you to, we have a traffic calming toolkit that can be downloaded from our app or from contacting City Hall. And in it, you can describe this specific problem and ask our Public Works Department, who's sitting right behind you, to take a look at the problem and decide whether or not what the best option might be. In other words, whether signage, as you suggest, might be the best thing for this, or whether there's something else that can be done. to make that area safer. But I would really encourage you to look on our website for that. It's called the Traffic Calming Kit, Toolkit. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Plufka, I have her contact information. I think you sent an email,
I did.
so
Okay,
you're going to bring it up?
yeah, please.
Dan, our traffic engineer, is already on this, and on the agenda, there's a remedy for the issue you just brought up, going
I
to be
didn't even s-
discussed.
I didn't even realize.
Item
Okay.
9C.
Okay. Okay,
Stand by.
so thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay, I'll close citizen comments. We have one more citizen comment section at the end of this meeting. Reports to committee chair and alderman. As chairman, I do not have a report. Alderwoman Sims.
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Lockmuller.
Yes, thank you. I have a report. With the success of the playground and the popularity, it's kind of inundated that neighborhood that used to be pretty quiet with a lot of parking. And I know Jeff Gold, our other Ward 3 alderman, has received some complaints. I've received some complaints. So I would like to, with the committee's approval, direct staff to look into resident parking only in that neighborhood, and to be specifically the west side of 2801 to 2847 Brazeau. And then on Brazeau, there's an alley behind which people use to service for their own personal parking and garages. So I would also like to see that if we could possibly install resident-only parking on the east side of the alley behind those homes, and then also at 2901 through 2925 Brazeau, in the alley there also. So I would kind of like to make a motion to direct staff to look into how we would create a program and or resident-only parking in those areas.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? I have one. Bola, isn't it in the block of, I'm going to probably get the street name wrong, but is it Moritz that runs from Brentwood Boulevard to High School Drive?
Yes,
Where there's a similar resident-only parking?
yes.
And could that be a kind of a model for what the alderman is asking for?
It can be a model. It definitely can be. So when you say you want staff to look into it, what exactly does that entail? Look into it or just do it?
Well, I don't know if it's something that requires drafting of an ordinance to have that area.
Because we talked about resident-only parking permit, and there's different thoughts on it. So I don't know if everybody that weighed in on when we had that discussion would be willing to do that tonight. Some support it, some don't, and others, they want to make you aware, possibly, of the challenges inherent with that. How many permits, for instance, do you issue? What if I'm hosting a party and, I only have 2, and there's, I don't know, 10, 15 people, then what? When we issue tickets, then what? So, Dan, why don't you start about what it would take to create an ordinance and
Yeah,
change
it
that?
is in the code, so you've got like table 3A, which is no parking at any time. So that pertains to residents, non-residents. Then there's other streets, to your point, that'll actually say parking by residents only, and some even go further and they'll actually define like Monday through Friday and actual times. It's kind of all over the place. I looked at it earlier today, there's probably like 10 different streets that have different times and dates. I think what you're saying is just residents only, regardless of day of week, time. So it would have to be done. We'd have to draft some sort of bill, bring it back to the board. The challenges I saw were just, how do you implement it if it's out-of-towners for Thanksgiving, a birthday, Christmas? In the past, they only had like 2 placards per house and a sticker for the cars. You got 8 people over, who gets the placard? Is somebody gonna have to park 3 blocks over and then walk? I guess you could, you drop stuff off and then park somewhere else.
Or you let your neighbors know you're hosting a party.
Yeah,
Everybody's going to park everywhere. Don't call the cops on me.
Well, how does it go down on Moritz? We've tried it.
they don't have a park there for one. It's a lot easier because there's no big draw to that neighborhood. I know the challenge with Brazeau in that area is that there's no other streets really. You're pinned in by Manchester, Brentwood Boulevard, and then all the enhancements for Brentwood bound. You've run out of streets. can go further south, but now you're in Webster Groves. You know, you can't park at the Metro Garage, you can't park, you know, businesses up and down Brentwood Boulevard. But eventually when Russell has the signal, then you could park on Russell. There's bump outs, there's public parking there. You'd be able to press a button.
Most people take the least resistance.
Right.
So they'll park wherever they can, as close as they can. And I just think now, these people have lived there long before we did anything down there. And now they can't park in front of their home if they want to.
Right.
And I should think they should have at least first right to be able to park in front of their home. I know it'll be hard to enforce, I mean, if they have people over, but I'm not saying that the police just sit there and write tickets all day long, but they then have that power if they're driving by and they see someone get out of the car and drag all their kids to the park, they can at least go up and give that person a warning that, hey, this is resident parking only. I mean, that's my intent of it. I'm not trying to give big, you know, the police come
Right.
down hard on people, but just try to enforce there with signage that it's resident parking only.
I have a question. Before we did something like this, would it have to be voted on? It would have to be a,
Yes, yes.
so to the motion,
I mean, I went to college in a big city and I started out working after law school in a big city and therefore received many of these kinds of tickets. I mean, there are ways this can be done. I mean, even as lo-fi as, you know, each resident gets, you know, placards that are stuck in the the windshield. I mean, I think sure, like maybe let's just see how Los Angeles does it. I mean, there are permitted, I mean, parking is scarce in Chicago. I mean, there's got to be some plowed field here that we can riff on. You know, I mean, I
think even the signs parking there, even if they do, if there won't be 10 people parking on that street, it might just be one. I don't know.
I mean, we certainly can do the resident permit parking, and so one would need to decide, though, how many placards do you give each home? Is it 4? Is it 5? It's more than 2.
I say we cheat off of someone's homework. Like, what is normal? Like, what has been done? I mean, I would.
What's been done is 2.
I think, or you know, like, let's see kind of what exists out there already. And I mean, I'm sympathetic to these residents. I mean, they lived on a quiet street for however long that house was built and put there, and now, I mean, there's not a space to be had. So I mean, let's look at it, you know, and
can we
weigh the
look at,
options.
and I was just gonna say to the motion that's been made and seconded, is it feasible to get something drafted for the Board of Aldermen's consideration by May 6th?
Probably. I was gonna just reach out to other public works, see
Okay.
what their ordinances are, if they even have it, you know, Webster, Maplewood.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
ask about how they do the permitting process and.
Yeah, this one's extra challenging because you don't want anybody parking on the east side of Brazos from Anna all the way down to Brentwood Boulevard. So that eliminates one whole side of the street. Then the other side of the street, you're saying you're only a resident, you can park there. You've got 61 regular stalls at the parking lot. You've got 3 ADA. If you don't park there, you gotta go somewhere. I can see them parking behind the businesses because you've chased them away from the residential streets, but
When it comes to parking down, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
When it comes to parking down there, we should be funneling people that want to use that park in either off Brentwood into the parking lot, or people can walk in or park when we get the parking up on Manchester Road and come in through the tunnel. There's no reason why they should be passing through a residential neighborhood, parking in that neighborhood to go enjoy the park. We need to funnel them through those areas. And I think this is just one way to start doing that.
you know, in the alleys, there's nothing whatsoever in the code. So you just want residents only on the east side. The west side is typically businesses.
They'll still park there.
Right.
So, on the one block, you're right. The one block, it's all commercial parking
Yes.
anyhow. But if you go back, the 2901 through 2925, they've been parking on both sides of that alley and using the playground. They're parking in people's backyards down there. I'm getting complaints about that. So, you know, maybe that'll drop off a little bit, but I'm not going to wait for that. I think we have a motion and.
Roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka? Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder? Motion carries by a vote of 4-0.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, and, Alderwoman Harder, do you have a report? No, I do. Okay. Administrator's report.
Thank you, Alderman Plufka. I am providing you with an update on the staff's effort to bring online temporary parking in the city. At the last Board of Alderman meeting, staff was authorized to proceed and look at lots 8614 and 8615 Manchester Road, both north and south, that are owned by the city, but currently the ownership lies with MoDOT. So MoDOT purchased those two properties on behalf of the city, and they have not transferred ownership back to the city. In our meeting with them last week, we were told initially it would take till July for them to transfer ownership to us.
I can
But
write the deed. I'm kidding. Like,
But because what we're looking to do is just put in not a complicated parking lot, probably mostly gravel, they said that all we need to do is go through their permitting process, and that is an easy approval. They just want to see the design plans, and they would greenlight it, and so we can proceed without not being the owners of those two lots right now. However, survey work is required, so we have initiated survey work. We need to know what utilities, if any, are underground. We are also following the city's purchasing policy in obtaining bids. We think it would be better if we hired professionals, contractors to come in and put it in, rather than having staff do it. It would really be buying gravel and doing the design. So that's where we are. We've also, to help us with the other parking stalls that we would be bringing online, Dan has drafted an RFP for an emergency on-call general construction services, so that the other parking stalls or parking lots, we would be able to use whoever selected to just go ahead and put the remaining parking lots online. So right now, we're waiting for the completion of the survey. We also, in trying to decide what the access points would be, particularly for the lot on the south, we thought we would need easements from 8600 Manchester Road, but there's a way to get to our lot without having to incur additional cost. So those were some of the discussions we had last week. So what we're waiting for is quotes and survey work, and then we would be, hopefully in time, coming to the board meeting on the 6th with a recommendation for who would be selected, and then try to start the construction of the two lots.
Does that require some kind of a budgetary vote as well?
So it would require a budget amendment, but once we know what the cost would be, that would be something that we would also be presenting to the board on the 6th.
So how confident are you at this point, given that it's the 24th of April, that we're going to be ready by May 6th to do all the things you just said, to vote up or down the actual laying of the gravel, and then vote up or down the actual budget amendment it's going to cost?
I'm pretty confident.
Okay.
We're pushing hard, so,
Feels like 70% to me.
okay.
Thanks. Okay.
I'm certain we're gonna bring something to the board. We'll have a good idea on what the cost would be.
And then, is there any sense that you have as to, once it's been approved, what we're talking about in terms, is this a one-day thing? Is this a?
I think it's greater than one day. Dan, do you have a good idea of, is it a week? It's at least a week.
So the earliest that we would be talking about these two parking lots coming online would be the middle of May, which would may coincide with the beginning of summer.
Yes.
Okay. Have any questions? Yeah.
Yes. That would, That would be the
Okay.
plan. It's
Okay.
now looking more like 70%. Thank you for that.
Okay. All right. Right. All right. Thank you. Chief Cottrell.
Good evening. Review the department report. I'll begin with recent alarm we had April 2nd. So we had the storms come through the middle of the night. I think generally speaking, Brentwood really dodged a bullet. Design and flood mitigation really helped Brentwood. We did have one water rescue in the city of Rock Hill. Our equipment and our personnel performed at an exceptional level. So we're very proud to effect that rescue. An interesting piece that evening that we've kind of been working on since is our code red notifications that we subscribe to for mass notifications to the public. They did not go out that night. We began looking into why they did not go out, and it was tied to the National Weather Service radar being offline. So it's very concerning. We weren't notified that our notifier was not working. So we're going to investigate options. What do other entities or other vendors offer as far as mass notification? So we're going to start on that process this year. I don't look to bring anything forward anytime soon, but potentially next year's budget request could include a change in that.
How often does that happen?
So the radar was down earlier this year, scheduled for a maintenance, and we were aware of that. This is the first time that I've encountered that. Yeah.
To the city of Brentwood's code system.
No, I
So,
do remember them saying it was national, but I
Right.
was just wondering how many other times, I don't
Once.
remember it ever
That's
happening.
Yes, now.
the first that I've encountered as
Right.
chief, yes. Any questions on that? The playground opening from a fire department perspective was a tremendous day. We had staff there just in case, and it was just great interaction with so many people. So we look forward to future contacts down there, similar, where we'll staff the UTV, do a check for bike helmets, just different interactions like that. We look forward to those opportunities. A brief snippet on apparatus maintenance. I know I've been putting in my weekly report. We've had some recent struggles with that. The Dodge Durango that we're currently using, primary use is for the fire marshal. It is limping along, and so we hope next year's budget cycle to get a replacement vehicle, and we shift one of the current chief staff vehicles over to that role. But the downtime is really costing us. It's becoming increasingly longer to get repaired from the Dodge dealership, the age of the vehicle. So it's just something that we keep facing on a regular basis. I got a little nervous last Friday evening after fire training. Our crews were coming back from West County, and they just got on Interstate 270, had a failure of a radiator hose, and truck began to overheat, so they had to stop, shut it down. And so at rush hour traffic, I didn't want the Brentwood Fire Department being on a traffic report. So we had the truck trailered back to the station. It was fixed. But that's why the notification went out. It was high visibility, and the timing of day was not good. And then the drone, we just had a routine maintenance. They did make repairs. Just consider, that it has 4 propellers on it, and it just moving through the air. It's picking up debris, and it can create some damage. So that was just preventative here, but it was gone for about 2 weeks. It's back in service and ready to go again. As soon as I'm done here, I'm headed to an award ceremony. One of our captains is receiving a medal from the Webster Groves Fire Department of a rescue he performed in October. Truly heroic. I witnessed. I tried to get him to change his plan, but he was engaged. He was rolling with it, and truly saved an individual's life at that fire. So very proud of our department and Captain Urshan for what he's going to receive later. So, any questions on the department report? With that, I truly appreciate the amendment to the agenda. If I may, Chair, go to those items.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the first item is billing service agreement. This is an amendment to the agreement that was signed in December. The basis behind this, we were required to have a billing agreement to be compliant with Medicare and Medicaid. Mr. O'Keefe and EMSMC were still working on that agreement. Those have been, all the edits have been made. They've been agreed to. I now have a clean document, which requires an amendment to the resolution. So that is what is presented tonight. The terms are the same.
Can I get a motion to amend the resolution?
So moved.
Materials, thank you. Second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? This is all of the changes and everything that were things that we talked about in
Yes.
December. We just have
Yes.
now have them.
Yes,
Inscribed.
we now have them inscribed
Okay,
from their contracts and Mr. O'Keefe. So,
very good. Any other? Roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims? Alderman Harder? Alderwoman Harder? Alderman Lockmiller? Sorry, I did them out of order. Motion carries by a vote of 4-0.
that will be placed on the May 6th agenda.
Terrific.
The next item, I am very excited to be discussing this topic. Last year, we were notified by our medical director, Dr. Rapoff, that changes were coming for medical direction in the St. Louis region, but specifically for our department. And we knew that there was a pivotal moment for this decision, and we did not want to rush into it, and we wanted to do our due diligence and meet with as many vendors, systems that we could to get the best service for Brentwood. We interviewed multiple entities, and I'll list them here just so the public has record. SSM Health, that is who we are currently with. Mercy Health, Washington University, St. Louis Elite Medical Systems. We weighed the pros and cons for each. We weighed price points, the value for the cost, and we are recommending to enter into an agreement to go with Washington University for medical direction. As we saw last year, Washington University is the only one in the St. Louis region that has resiliency built into their medical direction. All of the other organizations, they have one physician running this. And I think that's problematic. It's not a cheap shot. It works for them until it doesn't. And so that's a driving factor in this. And yeah, I'll stop with that and answer any questions.
Seeing no questions, can I get a motion to approve the agreement for medical director services? Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller? Yes. Alderwoman Harder? Yes. Motion carries by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you very much.
No problem. And safe travels and good
Thank
luck
you.
tonight. Tell them.
I will. Absolutely, I will.
Yep.
This item, the medical direction, we will not place that on the agenda until we have a clean copy from Mr. O'Keefe. It's in process right now. So hopefully, I believe May 20th is our
I think
goal.
the first payment was going to be after July, it looks like.
Correct.
So you're
Correct.
not in any time constraint there?
My time constraint is giving notice to SSM.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's no cost on that. We just had to provide notice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Chief Spees.
Good evening. The police department's report, start with our crime report that we typically do. There's a couple of incidents over the last few weeks I was going to mention, starting with the Brentwood Forest incident, where the subject went into Brentwood Forest armed with a gun and attempted a carjacking. Missouri state law requires that anyone gets bond reduction hearings. At the time, warrants were issued on the guy involved in it. Davinair Jefferson was his name. $250,000 bond based on the felonies that were issued. He's still locked up in St. Louis County Jail, so whatever bond reduction process apparently was denied. So I don't anticipate that he'll get another crack at that, but he's still in custody. We had an interesting case in this April timeframe. There was a wallet stolen down at Barnes Hospital from a construction worker, and the credit cards in the wallet were used in Brentwood, and for about $1,500 at Home Depot. So our officers went up there, investigated the incident, were able to get the license plate from the vehicle that was used. Didn't know who the guy was driving the car. He gets away before we get up there. We put that vehicle into the flock system, and 2 days later, which was yesterday, that car was identified through flock in Minnesota, in a small town outside Minneapolis. And the officers were kind of excited when they called, and they called one of our supervisors, Seth Mundorf, and said, "What do you guys want this car for?" So Seth told them the story that I just told you. Well, as it turns out, the guy, when the officers up in Minnesota tried to stop our suspect from Brentwood, he was armed with a gun, challenged the officers with the gun, had a standoff for a couple hours while he's sitting in his car, and then their SWAT team ended up shooting the guy. So these are the kind of folks that I point that out because who knows what would have happened had we dumped on this guy at our Home Depot. But he had an extensive criminal history. He wasn't a young guy, but he had been in and out of the penitentiary his whole life. I guess yesterday was the day. He wasn't going back. So the case that we had, and these are ongoing, by the way, Walgreens throughout the St. Louis area, mainly in the county, in West County areas, there's a suspect that's going behind the counter and stealing $1,000 worth of cigarettes typically. We haven't listed these as armed robberies, but our Walgreens got hit on the 15th. The guy ran behind the counter, intimidates the clerk horribly, scares the clerk, and steals cigarettes and leaves. This is a series, you may have seen this on the news. We were one of those thefts that are occurring. So the most recent one, he was listed for an armed robbery. So we have a vehicle that's in the flock system. It's been jumped once already, and he ran. The car was not caught, but that's an ongoing investigation. And I think he's done so many of them, he's going to get caught before he's done. So on the 20th of April, I was going to talk at length about the demands of the new park. I want to be perfectly clear on this, that we love the new park, we love the playground. This is not denigrating our park, but it has presented challenges for our police department. The board allowed us to hire 3 officers to address the park, and using those officers, quite frankly, has been successful, but it hasn't been enough. So we've had to assign on-duty officers down there. And just to give you an example of that, at night, especially on the pretty nights, we're getting teenagers that are gathering in the park after hours. They're in there drinking, they're in there doing whatever they do, and doing what teenagers do. So for the most part, it's been officers going down there, running them off, and they've been compliant and left. We did have a resisting arrest out of one that wasn't so compliant last week, and he was taken to juvenile for resisting arrest and possession of drugs. So the point is that the park is presenting a lot of challenges, everything from a lost kid in the playground, and that's really, it's something that's really not that hard to find the parent or grandparent eventually, but it takes up probably 30 minutes or an hour of the officer's time by the time the answers call, gets there, holds the kid, finds the parent. So these are the kind of things that are drawing our time down at the park. And then, of course, there's the parking issues. So we're trying to manage that as best we can. I think the city's reaction to this with onboarding these 2 parking lots is really going to alleviate a lot of this, hopefully. One of the things that we were looking at was that area that Alderman Lockmiller, you were talking about on Brazo. was maybe on top of the signage for the resident parking, could we make that some version of local traffic only? So that we could keep these people at least, it's not gonna keep them all out, but perhaps additional signage may help a little bit as well. Just give them the feel that this is the neighborhood, that these folks don't, this isn't the place to go to park, so. Those issues are gonna really, they are already, I mean, they're causing calls for service, and our officers go in there and, it's a challenge to not go in there and call tow trucks and pull these folks out or write tickets. We know who are going to this park. These are family people that are parking when they're not supposed to. So we're trying to navigate through it so that we're doing the right thing, keep these people whose residences are being blocked or parked in front of happy enough. I don't think they're happy at this point with the new park, but keep them at least with a response from our police department that they're happy with, and then we'll get these cars moved as best we can. It's just odd to me, the timing on them. I was anxious to come in here and tell you our nighttime crime's great, right? So what happens last night, we have 2 cars hit last night, one on Pine and one on White Avenue in the 9300 blocks. Both cars gone through, some stuff stolen. Generally speaking, our nighttime crime has been very low for months. And as you guys will remember at the last board meeting, our special assignment unit of 5 officers were given a chief's letter for their work, and they have done outstanding work. Really put a lot of pressure on our retail area in terms of our theft has gone down, our calls for service are going down. Having said that, it's always a challenge to try and staff that because we're trying to juggle a lot of things between the park. We now took a sergeant that's probably going to be on light duty for a considerable period of time. So it's always a challenge to try and get our way through that. But just to give you a little idea what those 5 officers in that unit to date currently are up to: 522 investigative stops, 197 tickets written, 51 arrests, 24 canine deployments, and 7 weapons seized. So the work that they're doing is impactful, and we're trying our very best to keep that unit together to do it. So that's really all I had for the crime report. If anybody had any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions? Thank you very much, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Just 2 quick things for Public Works, Madge Avenue. I don't know if anyone's driven down there, I know you would have, but the speed cushions are installed in that block between Brentwood Boulevard and Annalee. So I heard positive feedback from the residents that spoke to my staff that were out there, so I guess that's a good thing. And then over on Brentwood Boulevard, the lane closures. So Missouri American's still working out there. They've got a little bit left to do down at the southern side of the track. So they believe that they would finish sometime next week. But then after that, we've got Union Pacific Railroad moving in. The dates in here say the 18th through the 20th, and we're trying to confirm that because I've heard earlier dates than that. I just need confirmation. I know that Navigate's reached out to them because this was the latest and greatest date we received before receiving an earlier date. But either way, it's going to close a 3-day period, like probably a Saturday, Sunday, and a Monday. So that would be all traffic. So it'd have to be detoured like down to Marshall over to Cleat Station, and then back up. But that would stop all traffic in that area while they rip up the tracks and put the new track down. And that's it.
Thank you. Stay where you are, because I think you're going to
Yes.
come right back up. Okay. Number 7A is meeting minutes. That's on our consent agenda. Everybody had a chance to look at those minutes? And if they did, do you have any changes, redactions, or additions to? Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Second, is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims? Alderman Lockmiller? Alderwoman Harder? Motion carries.
Under old business 8A, Brazier Avenue, I think we've dealt with this topic under Steve's report, or is there another?
This one's a little different in the sense that The current code limits Brazos parking on the east side in the block to the north of the park. So basically from East Pendleton going north all the way up to Anna, heading towards Manchester Road, can't park on the east side. What I'm trying to do is, based on what we've seen since the opening on April 6th, is limit that east side going from East Pendleton going south all the way until it intersects with Brentwood Boulevard.
Okay.
So that would be on the park side of east, or of Brazos, you know, on the east side. So what that would do is it would help when you're coming in and out of the parking lot. You'd have clear sight lines to see to your right or left. If you allow parking on both sides, one, you're hoping that people are good enough at parking closer to the curb and given a wide enough swath for first responders, which I don't see that happening. You know, the code reads that you have to have at least 10-foot clear aisle if you park on both sides. If it's a large truck or a truck and a trailer, somebody's having landscaping done on their yard or whatever, and you know, somebody's parked on the other side, then that would restrict that even further. So this takes it a step further and would limit that whole east side from the beginning at Brentwood Boulevard all the way going north. It would be basically a fire lane. So if there's an emergency and you couldn't get in from Brentwood Boulevard, that would be how they would normally approach it. They could come from Pendleton and there shouldn't be parking on your east side. You'd be able to swing through there.
Okay. And,
But this has to be codified. We can't just,
okay.
we put up signs and it gives us up to 180 days, but we do need to do something more permanent.
And then so this would be coming to the Board of Aldermen presumably at the same time
Yes.
that the resident-only parking
Right.
plan would come?
And then there's more throughout this report that'll go to the board too. So it'll be
Okay.
probably a 5-parter, you know, because
Right.
it's
Right.
different areas.
Right. Can I get a motion to include this as part of that? Thank you. Oh, I know. Well, I've been doing this a long time. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims? Yes. Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder? Motion carries.
And so the Dorothy Avenue, thank you very much for that. Old business 8B, this is, you're giving us a progress update, or where are we at?
This was a challenge at one time when folks in the apartment parked all along Dorothy. Then they stopped doing that, but then because of the, you know, the draw of the park, people are parking along Dorothy. And I saw it on April 6th, they did still block that T intersection between Van Mark and Dorothy. So we put up signs that says no parking between signs. This needs to be codified too. We need to move the one sign a little further north, but I tried to indicate it in that picture with the blue line. So basically it would be on either side of that median about 30 or so feet, no parking. So the cars you see within that blue line shouldn't be there. So if first responders have to swing into the apartments, they'd have a clear aisle.
Can I have a motion then to essentially codify what's there now on a temporary basis?
Make it permanent.
Parking restrictions on the east side of Dorothy between the signs that exist currently to the north and the south of the entrance into that
Van Mark Way. Yep.
apartment complex.
So moved.
That was way more specific. Been moved and seconded, and is there any further discussion with regard to this codification? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims? Yes. Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder? Motion carries.
Skip down to item 9C, which is the high school drive parking north of Litzinger Road.
That one is me too.
Yes, it is.
Okay. I know I received the email from Alderman Lockmuller. Went out there, took a look at the area that we're talking about during the day whenever there's activity there. And then I also looked at what we had in the code. For some odd reason, there's a sign that says no parking here to corner. It's not in the code, but there's a sign out there. It's been there for years. I could go back and images of Google Earth back to like 2016, but it's like in the middle. So it's basically between Litzinger and Litzinger Alley. But there's still, if you read the sign correctly, you could park north of the sign up to the alley, which someone did do when I went out there, but it creates a sightline issue on your left, on the driver's side, if you're coming out of the alley. So I took a picture. The picture I took was just like a few days ago. The van, I was parked in the alley. I took measurements, parked like you would if you're behind the sidewalk, then moved up. But with that van there, you've also got a hedge you can see on the left-hand side. it creates sightline distance issues, and you've got angled parking on the opposite side where McGrath is. So I would recommend, like, at least from the alley, the southern edge of the alley, all the way to Litzinger, no parking. And the reason being is when you do the civil engineering calculations, you're supposed to have a time gap. If you're coming out of the alley, making a left, going southbound, according to the tables, based on that speed limit, you're supposed to allow about 8 seconds. That gives you like over 230 feet of sight distance. There's not 230 feet of sight distance from the alley to Litzinger. It's about 145. So I worked it in reverse. Given that you have 145, what's the amount of time it would give you to cross the oncoming lane to go southbound? It's about 5 seconds. I think it's reasonable. If you can see perfectly clear on your left, all the way up to the intersection, gives you about 5 seconds, because there could be someone coming north that stops or makes a rolling stop and then continues forward. On your right-hand side, it's not as bad. You know, we might have to limit that in the future, but as you're turning right and going northbound, you can at least see around the cars are coming southbound, and if it's completely clear on your left, it gives you a little bit better advantage of getting in and out of. There are 10 homes there, so it's not a huge population, but it is important to be able to get in and out of your garage and home safely. So that's my opinion.
I appreciate you getting on this so quickly, Dan. It would only eliminate 2 parking spaces that could possibly be used now, so.
2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to take the, what would it be, from Litzinger to this alley on the east side of the street to be, of high school, to be no parking.
Right.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none?
When the old McGrath is knocked down and they make a field.
Microphone.
It's on. When the old McGrath is knocked down and they make a field to it, right? Is that what the plan is?
I believe so. I'm
Okay,
not
are they going to
100%
add
sure.
any parking there?
That I don't know. I don't know if planning would know.
Okay, I was just curious because that might alleviate some of that problem up in the front of McGrath.
Yeah, I know it's better motion the way cars go in and out now. It's circular, you know, from drop off to
Right.
pickup, instead of before they were coming from St. Clair and from high school all directions. But I know this would at least clear one side of the alley. You know, hopefully nobody parks in the alley. It's really just for ingress, egress to the homes.
Roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller? Alderwoman Harder?
Yes.
Carries.
2901 Brazos, East Pendleton.
Yes, that one, the resident came and spoke to the board during citizen comments.
Yep.
So 2901 Brazos is actually at the corner of Brazos and East Pendleton. So their issue was parking is allowed on the south side of East Pendleton. You can't park on the north side, but rather the south side. However, their driveway pad is on that south side, so people were parking the entire length of East Pendleton and blocking that driveway pad. So the best solution we came up with was no parking from here to corner. So you can kind of see it in the drawing that's in there, that orange line. Basically from the utility pole all the way up, nobody could park there to block that driveway. You know, the resident can still access the driveway. And then I know we wanted to take it a step further. I was gonna leave that little gap, but if we want to put up a sign just to the west of there, it would need to read parking for residents only.
I mean, it's going to say that. I mean, that's the plan at this
Right.
point, is to develop that signage.
We just want to put in something temporarily so that that resident could get access to her property.
Okay.
So we've already done that. If you go out there, it's up.
And it's hard to tell from the picture, but I think I've driven this enough to understand the utility pole is west of that pad that she's got, the.
It is. Yep, the guy wire and a pole, to your point, yes.
Okay, all right. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller? Alderwoman Harder? Motion carries.
Before I let you go, can I just
Yeah.
ask you a question?
Sure.
So, you've talked about, and Eric has talked about in his report, the idea of converting that crescent grass area into a more permanent parking. Can that be something that can come to the full board May 6th, a plan for how that would look like, what that would look like?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Number of parking spots, so Eric's been texting me, and he's, I think it's between 25 to 30. So let me share with you the number of parking spots for each one of those lots. North side of Manchester, between 60 and 70. South, between 40 and 50. The Public Works lot next door, between 20 and 25. Then Brazeau, which is the Crescent, between 25 and 30. So, and then we received permission from the CID Westlake to
Yeah.
park there, so that's about 50. So we're looking at a total, when all is done, a total of between 195 to 225 additional parking lots. But the three that we can easily bring online is north, south of Manchester, and Public Works.
What I was talking about, though, with regard to the Crescent, as I understand it, those Manchester lots are not designed to be there forever.
Correct.
Right. What I'm talking about is converting that Crescent grass space into a more permanent.
So can we bring a recommendation forward to,
What it's gonna take, because I'm imagining there's a budget amendment going on here, there's gonna be
Right.
an RFP, there's
Right.
going to be, I'm just talking about getting that process started.
so if we're able to issue the RFP for emergency services, then all we would be doing is possibly bringing the budget amendment to the board. We would just go forward with it if the board approves this, which means it would still give us room to follow city purchasing policy.
Right.
So hopefully, we'll update you before the board meeting and see if we can really meet that deadline or not.
I'd like to see if it'd be possible to bring that, just to bring that, I know that's farther down the line, I know that's not something that's gonna happen in the next 2 weeks. But nevertheless, where it's situated, it seems like it really lends itself, especially with the process you were talking about, that honeycomb
Oh, the true grid.
material
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would allow it to be grass, but also be parked on without doing damage to the underlying.
And I believe that area, you'd need a curb cut because it's a
You'd need a
6-inch
curb cut.
vertical
Oh,
curb.
yeah,
It's not.
absolutely. Yeah,
like
and
road
I don't
curb.
even know what the design would be, what the flow would be or anything else. I'm just saying, let's start that process and see where we get. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, that's part of what we're doing.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And thank you, Dan, for all your work.
Thanks.
The last item under new business is the emergency operations plan. Alderman Lockmuller had raised some concerns and asked about identifications to that plan. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
Thank you. So the emergency operations plan essentially was put together during COVID. We'd worked on it several different times. It's gone through several different iterations. This last one here, we included the communications manager, made it a little bit more robust and defined exactly what that role pertains to. I think you have the red line document in front of you, but I'm happy to answer any questions or anything more that you need on it.
I just wanted to make sure we invited Michelle to the party. I mean,
He's been invited.
Great. So can I get a motion to adopt the emergency action plan, or emergency operations plan, excuse me? Second?
Second.
There's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please. Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller. Alderwoman Harder. Motion carries.
Thanks, Jim. We now have a second opportunity for citizen comments. Sir, you raised your hand kind of at the end of that one discussion. If you'd come forward and identify yourself, you get 3 minutes to talk about any topic you want to talk about.
Yeah, my
related to
name's
public
Chris
safety.
Schuster. I live in that corner house right along High School, across from the grade school. And my interests are covered under the setting up the no parking for that strip of land. That's great. That's what we've been wanting. So
Okay.
we talked about this in our HOA meeting, and all of us are very happy about limiting the parking there. And I just want to say for myself, it is stressful that, like, if I'm going through there at that time of day, between the parallel parking and the 45 degrees and the exit here and sort of a busy intersection and the crossing guard, it's a stressful area. So like increasing that visibility, I think will help a lot. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else that would care to make a comment during citizen comments, either online or in the room?
No one online.
Hearing none, and seeing no further items on the agenda, I declare that this meeting is adjourned. That's a lot of